We have new polling on the Democratic side that's putting this primary season's change versus experience battle into clearer focus. Our NBC News Wall Street Journal poll reveals that 55% of Democrats prefer experience in their candidate, while 40% say it's change they prefer. But among all voters, 61% say they prefer change. Among Democrats who want experience out of a candidate, Hillary Clinton beats Bernie Sanders 77-19. But among Democrats who want change, Sanders is on top, 52-39. The continuity versus revolution theme was on full display during Sunday night's debate, with Clinton repeatedly tying herself to President Obama. Senator Sanders took on that strategy yesterday before doubling down on a line of attack that he used during the debate.
Senator, did you feel like Secretary Clinton hid behind President Obama last night?
Well, you know, you might say that. Look, at the end of the day, how much improved our economy today is compared to when Bush left office, when we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. The only way you don't see that is if you are very, very partisan. So we have made some good progress. But I think what we have got to do as candidates is stand on our own 2 feet. What I have tried to do from day one is to run an issue-oriented campaign. And the reason you run is to show the differences of opinion you have with your opponents. Hillary Clinton and I have differences of opinion. It's called democracy. But I'm not into personal attacks and mean-spirited attacks.
Last night you brought up her speaking fees. You don't feel like that's a personal attack?
No, I think it is a fact. It's a fact. Anyone disagree with me on it? She has received $600,000 in 1 year as speaking fees from Goldman Sachs. If that's not true, I will apologize. It's true.
Well, I mean, is that an attack or a fact? If that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
All right, both leading Democratic candidates were in South Carolina yesterday at a ceremony at the state capitol commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And from there, Sanders traveled to Birmingham, Alabama, where he addressed an overflow crowd of about 7,000. While Clinton headed to Iowa, where she pitched a, quote, sensible, achievable.
By the way, that's in Alabama, and we keep hearing that Bernie Sanders is weak in the South. That doesn't look really weak to me. I'm telling you, it sounds like one more narrative. We keep hearing, oh, well, maybe he'll win New Hampshire because it's a neighboring state. Maybe he'll win Iowa because, well, they're just crazy Democratic populists, and they'll love socialists. But he's not going to win in the South. He's got 7,000 people down in Birmingham. And John Heilman, this is a lot like, you know, the Trump stories that we've been hearing. The New York Times Interactive still has Donald Trump at number 14. And you just kind of wonder. You look at that crowd in Birmingham, and you go, wait a second. Oh, so that's where he's weak?
This is incredible.
Well, I would hate to see where Bernie Sanders is strong if I were in the Clinton campaign.
And just to put a finer point on it, there are a lot of African Americans in that crowd that I see. And one of the things that the Clinton campaign says is, you know, Bernie Sanders, he can win in all-white Iowa, he can win in all-white New Hampshire maybe, but Secretary Clinton's strength with African American and Hispanic voters make it impossible for him to win in more diverse states. Yeah. It is true that she is stronger with those voters than he is. There's no doubt about that. But the idea that he has no inroads with those communities, and the idea that he could get greater inroads with those communities if he wins the first couple contests, that's just wrong.
I remember, Mika, I think you flew out to Iowa. You were talking to Michelle Obama. One of the great frustrations of the Obama campaign was they weren't doing well with black voters and Hispanics. And Michelle Obama told you, just wait.
Yeah.
So people thinking, everything is static and this is never. This is game on.
I can't believe that. That could have been a Trump rally if you didn't look close enough.
Well, Donald would tell you that he would have had twice.
So Hillary Clinton was in Toledo, Iowa, and she spoke there briefly to people. Take a look.
I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to come out with theories and concepts that may or may not be possible. We don't need any more of that. What we need is a sensible, achievable agenda where we roll up our sleeves and we work together.
As many of you know, we began this campaign about 9 months ago, and when we began, we were 50 points behind. We were 50 points behind the inevitable Democratic nominee. Well, guess what? That inevitable candidate ain't so inevitable today.
Today. That was Larry David. Today.
People were saying that to me as a bad thing. I was
Willie?
like,
No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Who wouldn't want Larry David as president?
I know.
The contrast between Bernie's crowds and
it was like crickets in there.
Hillary's
They need
crowds.
to.
Amazing.
We have one candidate on each side whose events look totally unconventional from other things we've seen in American presidential politics. Barack Obama had big crowds too, so we have seen it there. But Bernie Sanders, these are rallies. These are not events where people are staged and roped in. Those are people dying to be in a room with him by the thousands. And we all know how these things work. If he wins Iowa, if he wins New Hampshire, then all bets are off. You can talk, she still has a big 25-point national lead. We get that. She has advantages in certain demographics. But if he does those first two states, watch out.
Confidence in politics matters as much as it does in sports.
You see him believing
and
it.
He is so confident. I ran into him yesterday in the Hilton in Columbia, and I say this advisedly, he was in a good mood. Is
that a Bernie Sanders good mood or a good mood for normal people?
I know,
Running on
really.
the curve. He's confident, and his operations confident that they still have the momentum and that they left that debate. And they both spoke at this ML King event yesterday on the grounds of the State House in Columbia yesterday in South Carolina. And he's not intimidated by her, and he's confident that his message has resonance. She has tons of advantages, and we shouldn't think of this as Sanders is the favorite. He's still the underdog, but confidence is so important, and he has it now.
Politics, the battle for the heart of the Democratic Party was on full display during Sunday night's debate, with Hillary Clinton repeatedly tying herself to President Obama. Senator Bernie Sanders took on that strategy yesterday before doubling down on a line of attack that he used during the debate.
Senator, did you feel like Secretary Clinton hid behind President Obama last night?
Well, you might say that. Look, at the end of the day, how much improved our economy today is compared to when Bush left office, when we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. The only way you don't see that is if you are very, very partisan. So we have made some good progress. But I think what we have got to do as candidates is stand on our own 2 feet. What I have tried to do from day one is to run an issue-oriented campaign. And the reason you run is to show the differences of opinion you have with your opponents. Hillary Clinton and I have differences of opinion. It's called democracy. But I'm not into personal attacks and mean-spirited attacks.
Last night you brought up her speaking fees. You don't feel like that's a personal attack?
No, I think it is a fact. It's a fact. Anyone disagree with me on it? She has received $600,000 in 1 year as speaking fees from Goldman Sachs. If that's not true, I will apologize. It's true.
It's true.
It's kind of that, I thought that actually during the debate, that was a really brilliant moment when he talked about the speaking fees, but then moved on to the $5 billion in fines that the company received for breaking the law, while young teens with marijuana in their pockets go to jail. It was like the circle of life that the middle class and people who are suffering in this country are living under and are tired of. He nailed it in 20 seconds or less.
And Bob Woodward, it's interesting, a lot of people that are supporting Donald Trump this year always go back to the fact that he can't be bought. He talks about how corrupt the system is, says I was part of the corrupt system, but you can't buy me because I get my own money. When Bernie Sanders starts talking about Goldman Sachs giving Hillary Clinton $600,000 to give a speech, that has to ring a bell or two among Democratic voters.
It definitely does, and during the debate they had the camera on Hillary Clinton, and you could just see she was furious. She was angry that he had raised that, and of course what he's done is he's got a theory of the case. The system is rigged. Hillary Clinton's in a way part of it, and I think that resonates with people. It was a powerful message. Now, whether it's going to take with everyone, obviously we're going to see. But as campaign presentation, it had an impact.
It will have an impact on the race. I have a prediction. But I think the difference here between Trump and Sanders is Trump can't be bought. He doesn't need them, and people love that. Bernie Sanders won't be bought. He won't be bought. He has been around for a long time. He has proven that. There is nothing that people don't believe about the fact that he will not, come what may, be bought. And I think Hillary Clinton's going to have to respond to that if things get ugly or get really, really close. I really think she's going to have to create some sort of alliance with Elizabeth Warren, and I even see her on the ticket.
And, you know,
I do.
Nick,
I know it sounds crazy.
Nick, you've written some incredible stories this year so far about how a handful of families dominate American politics.
By Elizabeth Warren.
And your, I mean, story after story after story after story after story that you have written talks about the corrupting influence of money in politics. And along comes Bernie Sanders, who single-handedly undercuts so much of what we all believe. Doesn't undercut your reporting, which is frightening, but cuts against the grain where over the last quarter, raising close to $30 million, his average donation was $27.
Come on.
That guy can't be bought. Average, I mean, could you try to put in context how unbelievable that is in 2016?
Absolutely. Look, I forget the average for a second. His contributions for the most part are coming in less than $200 increments, and it's something like 80 or 90% of his contributions come from people giving less than $200. Your average mainstream candidate, right, is raising 20 or 25 or 30% of their money from contributions that small, and the rest comes from big donors, from Wall Street, from oil and gas, from lobbyists, from who you name it. But what Trump and Sanders have in common is not relying on that crowd. Almost all of their money is coming from people who are putting in a few cents at a time, a few dollars at a time. It's amazing.
Those are voters.
Yeah, voters.
Those are voters.
It's unseen in modern American politics so far.
Chris, Eliza, we've talked about the built-in advantages that Hillary Clinton, of course, has in terms of money, and she has a 25-point national lead, but things are tight, obviously, in Iowa, and Bernie Sanders actually has a lead in New Hampshire. Do you see the dynamic between them shifting at all? I mean, in the last week alone, you've seen Hillary Clinton go after him on health care. You've seen Hillary Clinton go after Senator Sanders on guns once again, but really ramping that up. It's clear that she views him perhaps as more of a threat today than he was even a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, Willie, forget about Sanders. Look at how Hillary Clinton is related to Barack Obama. Go back to last fall. Remember I'm not running for a third term of Barack Obama. I'm not running for a third term of my husband. I'm running for my first term. The debate on Sunday night, effectively, she said, vote for me because I'm like Obama and this guy over here isn't. I think that tells you everything you need to know. They know they have a problem. I think Tamika's point, the issue is, can they fix it? Right? She still has vast, as you note, Willie, vast institutional advantages that we don't always talk about that go well beyond sort of her appeal to Hispanic and black voters, but they're just well organized in a lot of these states. They're not going to be caught flat-footed like they were last time. But passion, organic energy, these are things that matter a lot. And as Nick noted, when you're getting $25, your average contribution is $27. You're getting thousands of people at random places, like in Alabama, and you're Bernie Sanders. That speaks to something that Hillary Clinton can't necessarily get. Sorry, Mika.
Look, no. You were talking about the point I made. I'm telling you, she cannot fix it on this message. She can't.
Right.
She doesn't have the consistency. She doesn't have the message. She does not own the message. She is trying to buy it. She's going to have to buy it. She's going to have to get it from somebody.
The question is, I agree. The Elizabeth Warren thing makes sense if that's how you sort of co-opt that message. But to do that, she has to beat Bernie Sanders. Now, I still think she is likely to do so. But this idea that she can lose Iowa and New Hampshire and still be fine, it seems to me just as plausible that scenario would set up a massive panic among the Democratic establishment, as everyone would say, "Oh no, that'll just be fine."
You'd also see a massive shift in the polls, South Carolina and beyond. You know, John Heilman, when I first started running, nobody would give me money. I couldn't get any big donors, John Heilman. And a guy told me, who had been in politics for a very long time, because don't worry about it. You know what? If they give you $1,000 or $2,000, you know, they write the check and kind of go off. If they give you $25, they will. And exactly what he said. He goes, if they give you $25 and it hurts a little bit, they will follow you to the gates of hell to help you win. You look at those crowds for Bernie Sanders. It's all connected. $27 a donation. They come out because they belong. And they know that with his $27 per donor, they know that he's not going backstage talking to the people that really matter to him. Right. That the people that really matter to him are the ones in front of the microphone. Right.
Well, you know, a couple things to say about this. One is just on this question, and this goes to Mika's point about won't be bought, about just authenticity. There's this little thing that came out from this Time magazine interview over the weekend, which I think, you know, you hear, this is kind of it's out there in the world now, is Sanders telling Time magazine that he's never owned a tuxedo. And that they're asking him, you know, will you host state dinners, you know? And he said, well, you know, I'll give you this piece of news. I've never owned a tuxedo. I've never worn a tuxedo. And that sounds like a totally trivial, ridiculous thing.
That's my man.
But there are lots of people.
I'm going to vote for him.
There are lots of people in America who will be, you know, that sounds like a normal person. That's not, he doesn't own a tuxedo. I just think that's the kind of thing that, in terms of authenticity, people hear that and there's this kind of resonance to it. The other thing, to go to Chris's point about the institutional advantages that Hillary Clinton has, I was stunned to read in Nick's paper this Amy Chozick story that says that the Clinton campaign, it's according not to someone in the campaign, but someone, it says an estimate provided by a person with direct knowledge of the spending, and it does say the campaign denies this is true, but Amy does report this. She says that 90% of the Clinton campaign's resources right now are split between Iowa and the Brooklyn headquarters. And the story that Amy Chozick wrote here is about how they're actually not that well prepared beyond the early states, and that they're not, they had a lot of people in states beyond Iowa, New Hampshire, and now pulled those people back, and they've focused a lot of their resources on trying to deal a knockout blow to Sanders in Iowa.
Bernie Sanders seriously.
Well, they're trying to deal this knockout blow to Sanders in Iowa. And that, again, it's redolent of 2008, where they kept pushing the chips into the table in Iowa, and then when they lost in Iowa, they found out that it was going to be a longer race.
But why though? Because they know that the Vermont senator is going to outperform in New Hampshire next door, and they know it's going to be hard for them to withstand a loss in Iowa and New Hampshire without getting absolutely pounded. Bob Woodward, we've seen this before. I mean, we don't know how this story ends, but it sure as hell sounds a lot like 2007 going into 2008. And I'm just curious to get your perspective on what you see this year compared to 2008. And whether Hillary Clinton, who's been in the game, and you've been reporting on her for 30, 40 years, whether Hillary Clinton's a better candidate today than she was, you know, a decade or two ago, or whether she's getting worse on the trail.
Well, that's a good question, and we always talk about the rationale for the candidacy, and Bernie Sanders definitely has one. Hers, columnist in the Washington Post today, Richard Cohen, makes the point about Hillary is always talking about she has a plan. She will do this. And if, that is not enough of a rationale for the candidacy. So, you know, we'll see. But there's always this bounce, and everyone who's covered this knows what happens in Iowa and New Hampshire does not necessarily determine what's going to happen in the other primary states, because they come very fast, and it moves into areas which may not be as favorable to the renegade independent candidates, not just like Sanders, but Trump. So we're going to have to see. The question I had in watching the Democratic debate was, how are people going to feel about Hillary Clinton? And there was something hesitant almost about her. There was not that emphatic, I am here to do this. She was not able to make that emotional engagement. It was about plans. It was this kind of wonky stuff. And then Bernie Sanders would come on and say, hey, look, I'm telling you, it's the campaign finance system which is corrupt. It's rigged against you, and that's very appealing.